What's up, guys? Welcome back to another one. We're going to be breaking down Bellator 260 Lima versus Amosov in this video. And let's just get right into the action. In the first bout of the night, we got Alex Polizzi coming up against Gustavo Trujillo at light heavyweight. So Polizzi is 7-1, and he just got his first career loss handed to him at the hands of Julius Anglixas, and that was his first pro loss. It's his first time facing real adversity, and I believe that he's going to come back stronger in this one. He's the former 205 champion LFA. He's a pretty well-rounded fighter. He favors the wrestling, as we know. And, in his last fight, he went up against Anglixas, who's a bigger guy, longer, taller than him, also has some wrestling in his back pocket, and immediately, Polizzi went for that takedown, and Anglixas was able to sprawl and stop it. And for a guy like Polizzi, it's tough to keep going in the stand-up knowing you're not having that success in the wrestling, and that's really his bread and butter. So mentally, that does kind of wear on you a little bit too, so we have to take that into account when we're thinking about that fight. And also Anglixas is really good, which makes it even more difficult, you know what I mean? So I am a little worried about the size of Trujillo in this one because he's a similar build to Anglixas. He's taller and longer than Polizzi is. Really long, like 78-inch reach or something like that for Trujillo, who has good stand-up, pretty nice boxing, good hands. He's got a nice size advantage in this one. Had some nice knockouts in BKFC. But in terms of MMA and bare knuckle boxing as well, he hasn't really fought anyone high level, and he's still relatively inexperienced in this game. And being a striker, I feel like that's going to open up some opportunities for Polizzi to use that wrestling. And it's not going to be good for Trujillo if Polizzi is able to do that. So I am going to go with Polizzi in this spot. I feel like this is going to be a big step down in competition for him, after fighting Anglixas, and I feel like the nature of Trujillo will lend itself well to Polizzi's game plan, and he'll be able to use his wrestling to get a win here. So that's what I'm going to be going with in the opening fight of the night. And moving on to Amanda Bell versus Marina Mokhnitkina in the next fight that's going to be at women's featherweight. So Amanda Bell is coming in 7-7. She's going to be the larger woman in this fight. She's going to be taller and longer. She's been fighting in Bellator since 2017 and faced some pretty decent names along the way. I mean, she had a little stint in Invicta as well, and she's not really the most technically skilled, but she does have some power. She can use that wrestling to get fights to the ground and implement some ground and pound, and she's not the greatest grappler when she does get down there, but she's got pretty heavy top pressure, but she definitely can be submitted. She's a pretty, powerful striker on the feet, and she has a win over Janae Harding via ground and pound, who was able to beat Mokhnitkina. So you never want to use MMA math, but that does favor her a little bit, just in terms of game plan and how she's going to go about winning this fight if she is to win it. And looking at Mokhnitkina at 4-2, she's on a 2-fight losing streak after winning her first 4 pro bouts. And 5 of her fights were on Fight Nights Global, a promotion that I like in terms of regional scene promotions. Over there in Russia, you guys know I like that one. And 4 first-round submissions for her 4 wins, and each one of them was a different submission, so she does have a very diverse ground game. She had a somewhat close fight with Liana Jojua that she lost by decision, and Jojua now a UFC fighter. She lost, and we're talking about Mokhnitkina here, she did lose her Bellator debut to Janae Harding, and we mentioned that Amanda Bell has a win over Janae Harding, and that loss to Harding was the most recent fight for Marina, and she is a good grappler, like we talked about, but I don't see her being able to match the physicality of Bell in this one. I think that Bell is going to have to think twice about taking her down just because she does have that jiu-jitsu in her black pocket, but I am going to go with Bell in this one when it all comes down to it. I feel like she's just a bigger fighter here. She possesses the edge in terms of physicality. I think that she'll be able to win the striking exchanges in this one and then get the fight down every now and again. I feel like she'll have to watch out for those sub-attacks, but I am going to go with Bell in this one. And moving on to Lucas Brennan and Matthew Skibicki at 145 pounds. So Brennan is 4-0. He's on a good run currently. Obviously, he hasn't lost yet as a pro. As an amateur, he was 3-0, and all of his pro wins have come on Bellator. 3 of them were finishes. So he hasn't faced anyone high level. Let's get it out in the open. So he hasn't really been tested. He hasn't really faced that much adversity. And on paper, obviously, yeah, he is the better fighter, but I really don't agree with the line in this one. I feel like minus 900 seems pretty overpriced. On the other side, Matthew Skibicki, 4-3. He split his amateur fights 3-3. One of those fights as an amateur was to, Sadiq Yusuf, which he lost. But, it's a good name, good experience just to have under your belt. And 4-0 to start his pro career, and then has lost 3 straight in his last 3. So he also hasn't fought any high-level guys. If we're saying that about Brennan, we also have to get that out in the open about Skibicki too. Besides that fight with Sadiq, where he was KO'd in the first round as an amateur. But yeah, we really haven't seen that much out of Brennan in situations where he's been challenged, but I also don't know if this is going to be one of those situations for him, and I feel like it probably won't be. So I am going to be going with Lucas Brennan here. We haven't learned too much about either of these guys. I just feel like Brennan is better all around. I feel like, I think he's going to be a lot more confident in this one, and I do think that he's going to possess an edge in the grappling in this one. I could see him finishing this with a sub. I wouldn't bet this one just because the line is extremely wide. Brennan is Bellator's guy, and they want to give him winnable matchups right now. They're kind of grooming him for the next level, so I am going to go with Brennan in this one. Now, moving on to Nick Newell coming up against Bobby King at lightweight. So Newell 16-3, fought on a ton of different promotions. He's fought some big names in the past, like Justin Gaethje back on the World Series of Fighting back in the day. And he's starting to get up there in age a little bit, starting to slow down a little bit, I'd say. He does have some good wrestling. He has some slick jiu-jitsu. He's got some submissions that he can go to. And, talking about Bobby King here, 9-3, also getting up there in age in MMA years. 2 years older than Newell. He's 37. And he probably has the edge in the striking here, I want to say. He's got, some nice calf kicks, some nice side kicks that he can go to. Although he is a little bit older, I feel like he's better right at this moment than Newell is, if I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I am going to pick King in this one. It's definitely not a confident pick. Both of these guys are a little bit past their primes, but I feel like King has the better striking ability, and I just think he has a little bit more left in the gas tank at this stage of their career, so I'll go with Bobby King in this one, but once again, not really a confident pick. Now we have Taiwan Claxton coming up against Justin Gonzales at featherweight, so I'm really looking forward to this fight. I'm really excited to see how this one plays out. Taiwan Claxton is 6-2. All 8 of his pro fights have been on Bellator. The 2 losses that he had, one of them was to J.J. Wilson. That was in his most recent fight, and the other one was to Emmanuel Sanchez. So those are 2 really good fighters, not really that concerning. The Emmanuel Sanchez one isn't really that concerning. J.J. Wilson, I feel like a guy with the wrestling background of Taiwan Claxton, maybe you would have expected him to have a little bit more success there, but obviously, the grappling is the bread and butter for J.J. Wilson. And Claxton is a pretty decent striker, a little bit of an awkward style, not the most technical, but he is pretty decent there. Obviously, he's a good wrestler. He did that in college. He was a D2 All-American, and I believe he had a year or 2 in D1 back then. But, an All-American is an All-American, you guys. Obviously, he has very good wrestling skill. He's a really smart guy outside the cage as well, into tech stuff. He was a developer, and he actually turned down a job that was going to pay him $250,000 a year to go full-time with MMA. So he's definitely dedicated to his craft, and the thing that I don't like about Taiwan Claxton is once he kind of got that step up in competition, he started to struggle. So Bellator, fed him some easy guys. He breezed through them like it was no problem. And then all of a sudden, Emmanuel Sanchez comes along. He overworks himself early. He's used to having his way against these guys, being able to do what he wants, and he gets subbed in the second round. Even in his last win against the KO, he didn't really have much success in the wrestling department in that fight. And then against J.J. Wilson, he also wasn't that successful with the wrestling, and now he has to fight a really good wrestler in Justin Gonzales. And if he's denied in the wrestling department here, his stand-up becomes less dangerous as a result, because you don't really have to worry about those level changes as much. And then looking across the octagon, or not the octagon because it's Bellator, looking across the circle or the cage, Justin Gonzales, man, 11-0, undefeated, and as an LFA fan, I really like this guy. I believe he should have gotten a UFC contract by now, so I'm really excited to see him in Bellator. He's definitely at the level where he should be fighting in one of these major promotions, and I'm happy to see Scott Coker and Bellator step up and give this guy his chance. So Gonzales, one thing that you love about him right off the bat, he's very fit and he has good cardio. He can go a hard 5 rounds, a hard 3 rounds here, it doesn't matter. I feel like he has great cardio for this one. He's a very, very well-rounded fighter. When he won the LFA 145-pound belt, he really brought it against Jake Childers in those later rounds. He was not fading, and Childers is no joke. He's a bigger name on the regional scene when you're talking about big guys at featherweight outside of these major promotions. And Claxton, you know, as we said, he's a great wrestler, but so is Gonzales. And Gonzales will not be one of those guys that Claxton just gets down easy and finishes with the ground and pound, in my opinion. You know, Gonzales had 14 takedowns in his Contender Series fight, and that was against Zach Zane. And Zach Zane is a fighter that you know, he was signed by ONE FC, but he ended up not clearing the medical examination. So that's not like that's the only reason he wasn't there, and he was on Contender Series. So it's not like that's just some random scrub that Gonzales is coming in there and dominating. And believe me, Gonzales did dominate Zane in that fight, and he was able to put a beating on Josh Childers as well and find a finish in the later rounds. And you know, I feel like Gonzales actually has a striking advantage in this fight too. So I'm going to go with Gonzales in this one, and I was already able to throw some money down on him. I was able to snag him at minus 105. Some books, you know, shifted him to the favorite. A lot of them, you know, have him as the favorite now. And, you know, this fight is at a pick 'em in a lot of books too, so it's not like every single book has him as a favorite now. I feel like he's probably still an underdog on some, but I was able to get him at minus 105. I like the price. I feel like he's just a better and more polished MMA fighter than Claxton is. I'm not really a big fan of Claxton's stand-up, and I just don't think he's going to have a ton of success wrestling and grappling with Gonzales. So I'm just not sure that Claxton can beat Gonzales 2 out of 3 rounds. So I'm going to go with Justin J. Train Gonzales in this one. Now moving on to the next one, we have Kyle Crutchmer coming up against Levon Chokheli, and this is going to be at 170 pounds. So Crutchmer is 6-1. He was a college wrestler, and you know, he knew Daniel Cormier through the Oklahoma State wrestling community. You know, that's where he wrestled in college, and he began training at the American Kickboxing Academy, which is a really good camp. I'd say he definitely has the experience advantage here out of the two fighters. He's fought the better guys. His first pro loss came in his most recent fight. That was to Cameron Lachinov, who is on the Ultimate Fighter now, and at 5'8", he's a little bit short for the division, but you know, 5'8", 170 pounds, he packs a lot of power. He is a dense guy, and you know, that kind of plays into his favor with the wrestling game. He is very heavy on your hips, and you know, he finishes right through his takedown shots really nicely. You can see how good of a wrestler he is when you watch him, and he also implements the low kicks pretty nicely. You know, he's really added that wrinkle to his game since going to AKA, and Chokheli, on the other hand, 9-0. On paper, he looks absolutely excellent, but it's just that he really hasn't fought anyone that great. You know, he's a good striker. I'd say that he'll have the edge in that department in this fight. I just don't know if he can hold off the wrestling attack of Crutchmer on this one. He will have a height and reach advantage here, so sometimes those long and lanky guys are difficult to take down. There's definitely potential for Chokheli to get a knockout in this one, and it could be, well, not could be, I think it will be difficult for Crutchmer to strike with him given the disparity in reach here, but you know, I'm going to slightly favor Kyle Crutchmer in this spot. I feel like if he can work the wrestling, this is a winnable fight. Chokheli is young, he's unproven, he's untested. We'll see what happens, man. You know, Chokheli is definitely live in this one, but if I had to choose a side, give me the wrestler in this one, so I'll go with Kyle Crutchmer. Moving on to DeMarcus Jackson and Mark Lemminger at 170 pounds. So Jackson, 11-5, just lost to Grashik Bazinian 1 month ago. I was on Bazinian in that one for the reason that I just felt like the wrestling was going to be the difference maker, and he was able to get him down in that fight, and I feel like that was ultimately the difference maker. You know, it wasn't a runaway victory. Jackson had his moments, but, you know, Bazinian, the wrestling definitely, you know, it was impactful in that fight, and I'm just not that impressed with DeMarcus Jackson, if I'm being completely honest. You know, he's a good striker. He's got very, very long arms for his height. But, you know, he's just run into problems with wrestling in his last fight, and I just doubt that he's shored that up in 1 month since. So, you know, Lemminger is probably going to take him down in this one. I mean, Lemminger 11-3. He had 2 real tough fights in a row in his last 2 fights. Yaroslav Amosov in the main of this one, and then Jaleel Willis. Lemminger is going to be much bigger than Jackson is in this one at 6 feet tall, and Lemminger is a great wrestler. Gonna go with Lemminger in this one. I feel like this is a good matchup for him, and I just feel like it's a bad matchup for Jackson. So Vanessa Porto coming up against Lara Joanne at 125 pounds. Porto is 22-9. She absolutely has the experience advantage in this one. She's fought much better competition. She has a good all-around game, you know, a little bit more technical, a little bit more polished in my opinion. She's 37 years old now, so you have to take that into account. And looking across the cage at Joanne at 9-5, she's got pretty decent head movement, pretty decent footwork, pretty decent feints. Her striking is just kind of okay, though. And, you know, she hasn't really fought great competition. She's training with the Pitbull brothers, which I really like, but I'm just not convinced. I'm not sure that she's on Porto's level just yet. So I'm going to be going with Vanessa Porto in this one. I feel like Porto is just a better fighter overall. She's getting up there in age, but I just don't think Joanne is a huge threat to her right here, right now. Joanne could definitely win this one, and I bet she's making lots of improvements. She's still young at 26 or 27 years old. But, I'm slightly more confident in Porto in this one, so that's going to be the pick. Now, moving on to Aaron Pico and Aiden Lee at featherweight. Pico is 7-3. He's a Jackson Wink product. A young up-and-coming prospect. He's on a 3-fight win streak right now. All 3 of those wins were finishes, and obviously he has a great wrestling background, as we know. He's been improving on the feet as well. He's got some heavy hands. He's a decent boxer, but this is going to be his toughest matchup in a while. I feel like on the feet, Lee might be a little bit better. Pico is giving up some height and reach in this one, but I think that he can kind of compensate for that with the wrestling. I feel like the wrestling is going to be really big for him here. He's definitely going to have to lean on his base in this one. And looking at Lee, he's 9-4. He's got lots of nice footwork. He's got some pretty decent hand speed as well. Just some nice striking in general. Pretty big height and reach advantages in this fight. So striking is 100% going to be his path to victory in this one. But I just don't know if he can withstand the takedown shots for that long. He's had trouble with being on his back before. That fight with Saul Rogers comes to mind. He's got some pretty decent jiu-jitsu too, but it's just different with this kind of top pressure. And I'm going to be going with Aaron Pico in this one. I like Pico to close the distance, get inside, get it down, and land some strikes. And, be able to work his game plan for at least 2 of the 3 rounds in this one if he doesn't find a finish. So I'll go with Aaron Pico there. Now, Paul Daley versus Jason Jackson, 175-pound catchweight fight. Really excited for this one. Paul Daley at 43-17-2. That's just an absolutely mind-boggling amount of pro fights. That's just that's insane, guys. How is your record 43-17-2? Like that's just nuts to me. That's so many fights. 38 years old. Just fought Sabah Humasi 1 month ago here. And he took some real damage in there. He was really hurt badly. He was in a bad spot. It did not look good for him. He somehow survived that and ended up finishing Humasi. I have no idea how he did that, but somehow he did. Just goes to show you, the willpower that he has and also the power that he has in his hands. So I'm not really sure how durable he's going to be in this fight after seeing that he is on a 3-fight win streak. Obviously, we know he's a very powerful striker. That's his bread and butter, but looking across the cage at Jason Jackson, man, 14-4. He also fought very recently. That was 2 months ago against Neiman Gracie, and he's also on a 3-fight win streak too. So a lot of similarities here in terms of recent events for both of these guys. Jackson, the Sanford MMA product, he's a good striker with super long arms. Makes him tricky to deal with, and he also has that good wrestling in his back pocket. So I'm gonna go with Jackson in this one. I have to be cautious of Daley's power in this, of course. Jackson has to be aware of that, but at this point in both of their careers, Jackson is just better in my opinion. I think he's better on the feet with his reach. He's going to have to watch for the power, like I keep saying. I think he's just a better wrestler in general, kind of no matter what. And I just feel like he has a lot more left to give now. He's a lot younger than Daley is, and Daley's last fight, he took some damage in that one, and that just doesn't fill me with confidence. So give me Jason Jackson in this spot, and I will have money on him come fight day. So moving on to the main event, we have Douglas Lima and Yaroslav Amosov, and I'm super excited for this fight, guys. This is an awesome fight. This is one of the biggest fights this weekend. Even though we have UFC 263 this weekend, some big fights on this card, this for me is right up there with those ones. Douglas Lima, 32-8, coming off a loss to Gegard Mousasi. That was up a weight class at middleweight. Obviously, out of the two of them, Lima has for sure fought the better competition. He has the experience advantage, just been in there with better guys, been in more challenging situations than Amosov has been in. Lima's resume is, absolutely glowing. He is one of the best 170-pounders in the world, no doubt about it, any way you slice it. But this is going to be a really tough test right here. So we saw him struggle with the takedowns against Mousasi. Granted, that's up a weight class, I see that, but it just, that's Amosov's bread and butter. That's what he's going to be looking for, and it does make you think twice. But Lima is just so powerful on the feet. We know this with his hands and his feet. Those kicks, obviously, you guys have probably heard that 50 million times this fight week, how powerful Lima's kicks are. And that could affect Amosov's wrestling game. I feel like Lima is for sure going to be the better of the two on the feet. The question really is going to be, will that matter in this fight? So looking at Amosov, 25-0, that's absolutely insane record, very Khabib-esque. Amosov is an excellent wrestler, excellent sambo skills, pretty underrated boxer in my opinion, but the competition level is just not the same as Douglas Lima. He's never experienced this type of fight before. And when this fight was announced, I was thinking Amosov. I had just watched, the Mousasi fight, and I was thinking, Amosov can use that wrestling here and kind of go about a similar game plan that Mousasi was able to implement against Lima. And I just felt like Amosov does have a good path to victory, and I still feel that way. But as time went on, I just found myself thinking more and more about how Lima could wear on Amosov as this fight goes on. Can he still get takedowns and get a lot of control time after getting lit up by heavy kicks for 3 rounds? In those 4th and 5th rounds, I don't know. If he wins let's say 2 out of the 3 first rounds, can I trust him to get 1 more? I'm not sure. Lima definitely isn't going to be the easiest guy to take down, but if anyone can do it, I feel like Amosov can. I wouldn't be surprised to see Amosov do it here, and I really, really wanted to believe and bet that he will, but he just hasn't been tested the same way Lima has. So I am going to slightly favor Douglas Lima in this one. This is going to be an amazing fight either way it goes. I'm not going to bet this one because I'm just not confident one way or another. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy it. This should be a really awesome fight, but if I had to pick a side, give me the champ, Douglas Lima, in this one. So thanks for watching with me. I really appreciate everyone who takes the time to watch, interact in the comment section as well. So best of luck to everyone this Thursday on PFL, this Friday on Bellator, and this Saturday on UFC. Have a great day, and I'll catch you on the next one.